Acronym check. Does anyone in the room, don't be shy, not know what GDSN stands for? Just the... Clowns are always in the front row. Okay, yeah. Again, MJ Wylie with J&J. I'm just going to go through a little bit about what we're doing, how the data represents our work with GDSN and some of our approaches, and the influence of major release and that impact, as well as how we're looking at data quality at J&J for this particular data. I think most are aware of J&J is our global presence, more than 275 companies, and I think 128,000 employees is up by a few, but that doesn't matter if that, at that level. So I want to take a look at just from the customer focus as well as the internal focus, because there's two ways of looking at it from our perspective. As we start to look across, I say data sync, and then I say global data sync, and then I say global data sync network, and everyone I run across in my own organization is kind of looking at this a little differently. So if you're exchanging data on an Excel spreadsheet, in my opinion, you have some form of data synchronization that you're working on. So part of mine is actually expanding the knowledge base of understanding the difference in those, trying to take some of those manual workarounds from various different strategies and try to pull those together. So obviously looking, driving toward that one industry standardization around the G10, which we're having great success around all three of our segments, medical device, pharmaceuticals, as well as the consumer. And search out new data sync customers. A few people were like, really? You want to bring more people into the chaos? The idea is because if someone is working with an Excel spreadsheet, is there a more probable way to work with that? And again, as Volker mentioned, that one-to-many relationship with your data of trying to publish once. So as we look across the customer focus and being able to bring those in, that's very important. When we look internally, what we're working on, especially heading toward major release, is aligning those strategies that I just mentioned, trying to find out who is doing what and what data pool are they working with, what market are they serving, and what's the methodology of trying to move that data. Looking to facilitate the automation of medical device data. We're working with various data pools across the globe right now. A chance to, again, where's that data? What's the source? Who's touching it? Is it regulatory? Is it environmental? Is it some kind of, is it a color or a flavor? Or is it much more detailed and much more impactful? As I mentioned, the update for major release basically have three focus. We have Project Sync is the internal name of our major release, and as we move toward it, it's a major focus on our consumer business, simply because that's been the maturity cycle of most of GDSN at J&J, representing more than a few billion of product that's represented on the consumer side for the consumer effort, which means we're certainly not taking that lightly. We and our side, as well as all those customers, need to be able to make that transition coming up in May. So migration for those consumers are a significant part. I mentioned internal tools and processes. A lot of that will be around the analysis work that we start looking at medical device and as well as the pharma data. Pharma kind of seems to be around the corner. Medical device is certainly, again, there's quite a few participating, but it's not just about the data. It's about those processes of working with those customers as well, whether it's an internal spreadsheet or working through the network. Review and update the data quality processes. J&J has I've been with the organization not quite a year, and they have a massive master data management strategy. Again, across different segments, across many different tools. We too are an SAP shop, so as you go through some of those workflows and looking for those opportunities, you start thinking, who owns the data? Did it really get in the right system? Or is it in one of those many, many systems that we haven't touched yet? So data quality becomes more than just that's something we should work on. It also becomes, people will say, the one-pipe strategy. I want to talk a little bit about the one pipe here in a minute and why that's so important to us. When we look at our segments across the globe right now, this is a little older. We've added a few stars. But there's still a drive and increasing desire for more customers coming to us. And of course, the other one that we'll hear more about, especially I think from Nick on the data pool specifically side and Margot, is the opportunity of not just more customers, the current customers now want more data. So if you already didn't have your hands full with the X amount of data attributes, now they're wanting more. So now, instead of trying to pick one of those categories, it's more of a use case and a module and a contextual view that we can start to work with. The data quality framework that I had mentioned earlier, people say data quality, data governance, what are all the other words? Data accuracy. Everyone starts flowing those around like they mean the same thing. Depending on which Google site you want to go to, they can all break down the different definitions. But I can tell you data quality doesn't mean anything until you have some governance, or what I refer to as how you're going to decide what data quality really is. So one of the things I've started here on the, sorry about that, timing is very critical for all stakeholders in case you missed that, this is my favorite clip art, has been for about a month now. I love this red car. I look at GDSN as an end-to-end, and we are certainly looking at it from a J&J perspective of it has to be from the point we put data in to the point the customer can consume the data. There's lots of A to B, there's machine to machine, there's all these different ways to get it to them. But I look at it as if we build this capability, but we don't put a high quality fuel in there, just like a nice Ferrari or a nice Porsche might need, it's just a vehicle sitting there. So from a data quality perspective, we're looking at it moving more and more than just B2B, looking into that B2C. So now all of a sudden the digital shelf is becoming very important. How are we lining up those data attributes? And again, what is the complexity about what is it accurate? Does accurate mean every single customer looks at accuracy the same way? We all know they want more data, so now the accuracy game has been upped. So now your quality game needs to be up. While most of us are in the medical device and around the healthcare space, a lesson I've learned recently out of the consumer market is something called top-off. Has anyone heard of top-off? Yeah, the people that did are growling. Okay. The idea of top-off is that while GDSN currently holds, almost 2,000 attributes that are possibilities, believe it or not, there are some consumers out there that want more data and demand it, and they call it a part of the GDSN process, but we can't use that module as it is right now to get it through. Major Release is going to help with that. So when I went back to J&J has a tremendous amount of master data quality management workflows, multiple stewards and governance policies in place. That's for the data that's in SAP. What about all the other data that we're still pushing out through Excel spreadsheets, through the manual feed, and then worse than anything is we all know this is not one and done. We don't just push it down the pipe and call it done, right? It's not a project, it's a program. I think that's going to be written on my tombstone. Because as we start to look at this, again, without the efficient fuel going into it, these are just a few ideas when we talk about a case for data governance around the GDSN strategy moving into 2016. Looking at some physical audits from 2013 and comparing. My biggest edge here is the physical data versus the electronic data. If they don't match, we've not done our job, right? So as we start to look at multiple report cards, I've got customers from everywhere telling me you scored an 82 on an apple and you scored a 52 on a banana. They're coming in from everywhere, so there's no way for us to really monitor how we can score. So as we start to look, I mentioned the B2B to B, the data explosion. Like I said, Margot and Nick will probably talk. We know they're asking for more data, and not only that, looking at the consumer-driven, the mobile, the digital aspect. More data, more accuracy, right? I mentioned the know how to decide. If you can decide and have a governance or a steering committee of some senior folks that will get behind this, no matter where you are in your data management program, I believe it's the quickest way for them to understand making some of those decisions can come back. This is not just about getting it data quality into GDSN and getting it to the customer. It's allowing that customer to actually consume, use that data downstream. That's why this becomes important. Whether it's your e-procurement and invoices, if you're going to use it for regulatory, whatever the business case is, if it starts out bad, downstream's just going to get uglier, correct? An aligned approach, again, packaging, sales, all the other customers and all the other touch points. And then last but not least, a consistent communication with our customers. And this is about the metrics or a sound data quality driven by those sound analytics. I refer to the apples of apples approach versus that one-to-many. If I keep getting report cards and they say I'm 17 to 82%, not that I ever received those numbers. It was an example. But if I got examples of saying 17% to 80%, but it's inconsistent, well, that data is worse than not getting any data at all. So this one's very dear to me of trying to make sure we reach that to a point that we start to understand our own data going out and what we're holding ourselves accountable, so that that customer communication. Most of the people in here hear standards. We know what standards means. It means an interoperable language. If I can't talk to you about my data consistently, how are you going to use it? Thanks.